first time I came to Poland was as part of Yoga and Meditation for Children program, because I'd written a book, Yoga and Meditation for Children, and it was a teacher's guide, and I was invited to Poland to teach at teachers' colleges and rehab centers all over Poland. And Jarek Bizberg was my translator. And we traveled around, and I came in 1993 and 1994, and my translator, Jarek, eventually became my husband on December 28th, 1997. Jarek and I went to sleep in the room off the kitchen. At the time, we only had one little wood stove because we were renovating the place. So we only had the kitchen and this little bedroom off the kitchen. So we had gone to sleep, but I had a bad cough and I couldn't sleep, and it was keeping him awake. So I took a mat and a pillow and blanket and went in the kitchen to sleep on the bench. And we had 2 dogs at the time, and both of them were sound asleep. So around 2:30 in the morning on the 29th, I was awoken to a huge, whirring sound, like a whistling and whirring sound. And it was really loud, and I got up. And when I stood up, I happened to look down, and both dogs were standing with their eyes wide open and just, not moving. And I looked out the window, the front window, and there on the front yard, where the garden is now, there were 3 blue lights, lights I had never seen before, a color like a blue luminescent color that was like an electric blue. I couldn't even paint that blue. And there were the 3 blue lights in a triangle shape on the front yard. And I was like, the dogs were just standing there, eyes wide open. And I just watched and felt the energy. It was mesmerizing. And then after a while, it seemed to fade, or I don't even remember. I think I went back to sleep. And the next day, at sunset, I began to receive guidance and began writing. And from that time, it was more intermittent in the beginning, but from that time, there were more and more messages. And the messages were always very positive, and they spoke of change, and they spoke of fear being the biggest enemy that we have, is our own fear, and to have more faith and to have more courage. And it was, and they were really beautiful, comforting, and loving messages, and the energy was like that. So I never even questioned who they were, because when I see the truth, I know what it is. But eventually all my friends were asking me, who are these guys? So I thought, okay, I'll ask. And then when I finally asked, I think it was probably a year later, they said, oh, we're delighted that you've asked. And then they proceeded to tell me they were Orion. They refer to themselves as a collective. It's not like an individual person named Orion. It's the collective Orion. What was interesting was several years later, in fact, maybe a few years ago, all of a sudden it came to me. I realized that a year before Orion, exactly a year before Orion appeared, Sri Vasant, who had been visiting here from India, asked us to plant 3 copper Sri Yantras, these small copper medallions, in the earth in front of the front yard in a triangle formation. And we did a fire, and he came outside, and we did this, performed this special fire, and we had a ceremony where these yantrams were put into the ground, and the ground was covered over and everything. And nobody ever could figure out what that was about. That's just something he decided that should be done. And then a year later, in exactly the same spot where the three yantrams had been planted in a triangle shape, that's where Orion first appeared. Same place. So when the messages first started coming, I felt that they were profound. So I wrote them. They were handwritten. I never knew how to type until I got so many messages from Orion. It became absolutely necessary, and somebody donated a computer, which, an early laptop, and I started to learn how to type, and now I'm a really fast typist. It's funny. I never learned in school. But I would handwrite them and then Xerox them, go to a Xerox place and Xerox and staple them together, and I'd send them to my friends in the United States, who would in turn Xerox them and send them to their friends. And eventually along came computers and email and websites and all that wonderful stuff. So now the messages are going out all over the world. They're on my website, and they're on other people's websites. And they're also different people have mailing lists, and they go out. It's kind of an organic thing.